Wolves picked up a vital win against Tottenham Hotspur, which will really bolster their chances of staying out of the bottom three. Today we're going to be having a look at how they managed to beat Tottenham and what they changed to really turn their fortunes around. Please make sure you like the video and subscribe, it really would mean a lot to me. But now, let's talk about how Wolverhampton Wanderers beat Tottenham Hotspur. Here we have both sides. As you can see, we've got Wolves on the left and we've got Tottenham on the right. We're going to be focusing on Wolves in this game. We're going to be talking about how they have been able to transition from the first half to the second half, because the first half was pretty dismal and the second half was very impressive, especially with the changes that julen and Lopetegui made. We have them set them in a 4-2-3-1, and we have Pedro Neto really making his first start in quite a while. Lemina and Neves have made something of decent partnership in the centre of midfield, and Matheus Nunes has been pushed up to that central attacking midfield role instead of being put out on this left wing channel. Sarabia maintains his place out on this right hand side. Obviously, with Tottenham, we have their 3-4-3 system that they always like to play under Antonio Conte. And one of the most surprising things for me in this game was the lack of possession that Wolves had in this first half. It was the lack of attacking intent that they had. They failed to really break through the lines of this Tottenham Hotspur side. And I thought that Neto was pretty much isolated by himself, trying to drive forwards but never really getting anywhere. Sarabia was pretty much the same. A lack of pace and lack of dynamism down this side, and Semedo making some very questionable runs at times led to some Tottenham counter-attacks. Neves tried to join in the attack to help out his fellow attacking players, but it was all for naught because Lemina wasn't able to really shuffle across and stop the breakaway from the likes of Harry Kane. Kulusevski and Son really had a field day in the transition for Tottenham. But also, Tottenham did maintain a lot of possession, and that was to my surprise, because Tottenham have generally opted to not have possession. They've not wanted to have the ball. They've wanted other teams to come onto them so they're able to transition. But it was in this game that they had most of the dominating possession in the game. It was very surprising for me, especially considering the fact that I felt that Wolves had turned a corner, that they'd been able to dominate the ball or at least maintain a healthy amount of possession, especially being at home. That wasn't the case. And not having possession and not being able to have a lot of it meant that Matheus Nunes went walkabout, really. He went drifting into the back of the midfield to try and pick up the ball, and this left a pocket of space that was just filled, or just wasn't filled, and it meant that they had one less player able to help in the attack. This also meant that Raul Jimenez, who did come on at the time, wasn't able to really support the likes of Neto or Sarabia because he was also trying to make darting runs in and around these three centre-backs. It all became a little bit haphazard, and they didn't seem to understand how to attack through the channels or attack through the middle of the pitch. It seemed like a system that had been put on Wolves without any prior training, and I'm sure that's not the case. That's not really how Lopetegui works, but when you look at the way they played, it really did seem that they weren't too sure on how to play. Also, credit needs to be given to Tottenham for breaking the system down, but I was just disappointed by the way that Matheus Nunes failed to drive further forwards. Lemina and Neves really didn't get a hold of the ball, and Sarabia was non-existent on this right-hand side. Pedro Neto tried what he could, but with the overlapping runs of Johnny and Semedo, they did end up getting counter-attacked quite a lot, as well as giving most of the possession to Tottenham. Speaking of giving most of the possession away, let's talk about Tottenham going forwards, because that was where they were most threatening. With Tottenham's forwards and wing backs, they ended up getting quite a lot of overloads onto the likes of Johnny and Semedo. This meant that Neves had to come over and cover, and Lemina had to vacate his man-to-man marking of Harry Kane quite a lot of the time. If we move these players forward, you can see that down the wide areas, if the wingers for Wolves do not come and assist and help out, it really becomes a long day for Wolves. It becomes a difficult task, because what ends up happening is they're able to just play 1-2s round the corner, round Johnny, round Semedo, and they're continuously in, and this happened time after time after time again. It meant the Wolves centre-backs had to drop that little bit deeper, as well as the full-backs, and it just ended up penning Wolves into their own half for quite some time. Again, it seemed like a system that hadn't been worked or hadn't been adapted to the way that Tottenham Hotspur would play. Matheus Nunes ended up just being in no man's land trying to mark random players, and it just seemed a little bit haphazard just during the game. It seemed like they didn't really understand what they were meant to be doing. And then you have the darting runs of Kulusevski and Son to come into the middle of the park. Once that was vacated, because you had the likes of Neves coming out to this side, Lemina coming out to this side, and it just left a whole lot of space in the middle of the park for the likes of Son and Kulusevski to get their shots off. Thankfully for Wolves, Jose Sarr really did have a good day at the office, and they were able to stop a lot of the attacks that Tottenham ended up getting, but it really did seem like a matter of time unless something was changed. And something, thankfully for Wolves, was changed. So let's have a look at that right now. Here we have the Wolves side in the second half and the way that they set up. As you can see, they've been changed. Their formation is now a 3-4-3, matching up to Tottenham's system, and they made a whole host of changes, which we're going to be talking about right now. They've moved into a 3 centre-back formation, bringing in Collins, pushing Semedo out to this right wing-back position and pushing Johnny out to this left wing-back position. This would have allowed them to really start to engage higher up the pitch, to engage the likes of Perisic and Pedro Porro, and this meant that Tottenham weren't able to get the free reign of the park or of the wings that they did in the first half. Moutinho comes into the central midfield to try and bolster up the passing range of this attack. And then you had the likes of Adama Traore and Cunha with this pace and physicality, who were able to both sit on the likes of the two Tottenham central midfielders. This stopped Tottenham being able to play through the lines. It stopped them really being able to play through channels. It stopped them being able to find different pockets of space. And it really did hamper the way that Tottenham wanted to go forwards. Because of this, the likes of Kulusevski and Son weren't able to find these pockets of space in between the lines, and it also meant that the passing lanes just weren't there. Moutinho and Neves did a very good job of shuttling across to try and make sure that they weren't able to get through those lines of press, to make sure they weren't able to get through the middle of the pitch. And obviously, with the third centre-back, Dawson was able to push forward into midfield to really start to pressurise Harry Kane, taking up that Mario Lemina role and making sure that he didn't have to man-mark him. It was a very, very good tactical switch that Wolves made, but also it helped them going forwards. With the likes of Johnny and Semedo, they were almost unleashed because of the defensive stability of Nathan Collins and Kilman. It meant that they were able to go forwards and start to make overlapping runs. Adama Traore, we are aware of his pace and his ability to drive through midfield. We're also aware that Jimenez has been getting better of late, and if we move these players forward, these 3 players forward into attacking positions, this is how the goal comes about. Acuna does a very good job of retaining the ball. Jimenez gets the ball, drives, and then takes his shot. Adama crosses over, and that's where he finds himself in and around the penalty area to make sure that he's able to get his shot onto goal over the likes of Fraser Forster. And it was this moment and other moments that they had which allowed them to really start to dominate the ball. They had more possession, they had more ability going forwards, and they just looked like they were more of a threat. They looked more balanced, with Semedo coming up and down this right hand side, Johnny coming up and down this left hand side, pushing the likes of Pedro Porro and Ivan Perisic back a little bit. Adama Traore was able to really start driving forwards once Tottenham ended up committing a lot of players, and in truth they should have had probably a couple more goals due to this nature. Matheus Cunha and Adama, like I said, were able to pressurise the central midfielders, and this helped Wolves in their transition. Moutinho and Neves are still very good on the ball, and with their extra defensive help with the likes of Johnny and Semedo next to them, it meant that they didn't need to do all too much running. So they stopped the passing lanes, they stopped Tottenham going down the wings as much as they did before, and they had these 3 centre-backs to really deal with the likes of Harry Kane aerially. It meant that Wolves were both solid defensively, and they also had an attacking threat going forwards. A tactical change that really did change the game for Wolves. Whether or not the goal was a little bit fortunate, I think that Wolves deserved the win based on their ability and their willingness to change the game. It really was a tale of 2 managers. One was stagnant and not willing to make any changes to his side, or at least no notable changes, whereas the other was ready to go gung-ho, was ready to change the game in the way that he saw fit. Julen Lopetegui did make all 5 changes before the 70th minute, and I believe it was this, along with the transitional play to a 3-4-3 system to match up Tottenham, which is what really allowed them to progress the ball forwards, to be defensively solid, and to finally get the win. brilliant. That's it for today, guys. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave the video with a like and subscribe if you haven't for more content like this coming very soon. Make sure you hit that notification bell as well. You don't want to miss what's coming up in the near future, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who is your team? Who are you supporting, and how are they doing? What are your thoughts on this game, and how will it affect both teams? Do you see Wolves staying in the division, and do you see Tottenham Hotspur claiming one of those top 4 places? Let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear from you. But like I said, that's it from me for today, so thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care of yourselves, and bye-bye.